listen to this podcast, or I'll gut you.
Welcome back, Horror Hounds, to Ghostman and Rivera's Horror Show podcast.
I'm Mike Ghostman Pickle.
And I'm James Rivera. Sorry we've been off a few weeks, but as you know, we are very, very busy. Today, we are going to be discussing the latest phenomenon in horror, the thing that everybody in the community is talking about, Malignant. Love it or hate it, we're going to break it down and discuss it. After that, Michael's going to give us his little breakdown of what happened during Texas Frightmare, which is probably the horror convention of the year, always is every year, so Mike will give us some information on that. And then we're going to close off with another round of Tubi Roulette and some reviews of the last movies we saw for Tubi. So you ready to get going, Mr. Michael?
Yeah, I've been so excited about this one. As I've said on the podcast, this is my most anticipated horror film of the year. And for me, it did not disappoint. Not just because I love James Wan's style and not just because I enjoyed it as a movie, but because of how bold it is. And it seems that the last few years that the horror films that I love the most are very divisive among horror fans, and this one's no different.
Yeah. So Malignant.
So it's
James Wan.
Yeah. So Malignant is of course directed by James Wan. The story is by James Wan. Ingrid Basu, she's an actress from The Nun, and she was also in Conjuring 3. And Akilah Cooper. And then the screenplay was by Akilah Cooper, who was a co-writer on Hellfest and also wrote for the Luke Cage TV series, American Horror Story, and also Grimm. It stars Annabelle Wallis. She was, of course, in Annabelle and Annabelle Creation, which was the best out of the horrible Annabelle movies. She was in X-Men First Class, Boss Level with Frank Grillo last year. That was really good. And also Maddie Hasson was a real... Maddie Hasson, was a real standout in this as Sydney, Maddie's sister. She was from We Summon the Darkness, and that was not a great horror film, so this is a big step up for her. And then we got the cops, played by George Young. George Young plays Kekoa Shaw. I love that name. And Nicole Brianna White plays Regina. Very entertaining, very exploitation film kind of cops. Then we got Jacqueline McKenzie. She played Florence Weaver. And I had to mention her just because how great she says, "Cut out the cancer."
Oh, yeah. You instantly know what kind of movie you're going to watch when that line appears. I was thinking to myself, as soon as she says that line, I'm like, okay, this should be the point where like you should know you're going to love it or hate it just based on that one specific line and the delivery and the way the camera zooms in on it. You're going to know if this is your kind of horror movie or not, I think.
Yeah, that tells you what it's all about right there. And I love the little appearances, like small roles, like Zoe Bell was in the Women in Prison scene in this one.
Michael, that was Zoe Bell?
Yeah, Zoe Bell. She had a killer mullet.
Okay, I watched it 3 times, and I kept looking at her. I was like, that looks like Zoe Bell, but Zoe Bell is prettier than that, so that's not her. So every time I saw it, I kept thinking, oh, that looks like Zoe Bell, but she's not pretty enough to be Zoe Bell. So sorry, Zoe. They did a good job of making you look tiny for this. But totally, I kept convincing myself that it wasn't who I thought it was every time I watched it. Okay.
Tarantino fans know her from Hateful Eight and Death Proof, and she always does Quentin Tarantino's stunts in his movies. So it's cool to see her there. And a great appearance by McKenna Grace. She plays a young Madison. She's been in 87 titles already. She had 87 credits on IMDb. She was in Suburban Gothic, I, Tanya, Haunting of Hill House, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and then Annabelle Comes Home. I thought she added a lot to this film. And then I really dug the cameo by Mike Mendez. He played the security guard that tries to subdue Gabriel in the first scene. He gets his arm broken and he gets like a gnarly kill. He's the director of Don't Kill It, Big Ass Spider, and Grave Dancer. So that's another thing that shows you what kind of movie this is going to be. You got kind of a modern exploitation director, is in the opening fucking scene, and all us indie people are nerding out about that.
Yeah.
So the synopsis is: Madison is plagued by shocking visions of murder, and her torment worsens when she realizes that her waking dreams are terrifying realities. I love, right off the bat, I love the music by Joseph Bishara. He did the music on Grave Dancers, which actually the score of Grave Dancers is actually better than the movie. Insidious, I always thought Insidious had a very huge standout score. He did Dark Skies, The Conjuring 2, Insidious 2. He did Room for Rent with Lynn Shay. It was really good. And I also love the score he did in The Conjuring 3. And I can't go without saying the cinematography by Michael Burgess. I think this is one of his best performances as a cameraman. He did Curse of La Llorona, Annabelle Comes Home, which looked a lot better than it actually was, and then The Conjuring 3. So for me, the opening scene in this one, bam, awesome gothic-looking hospital location on the water. So it's like several hints from the opening scene what kind of movie this is. You got a gothic, huge looking, impossibly huge and old looking hospital on a cliff. And then from the opening scene, we see what it's going to be. It's over the top, exaggerated from the first frame on. And then that first scene that ends, like we said, like cut out the cancer. Then a big bombastic opening sequence showing the research on Gabriel. It's just, from the get-go, it's like punches you in the face, and it just keeps punching you throughout.
Yeah. This is probably the most fun I've had watching a movie in 2021. I was anticipating this, but I actually liked it quite a bit more than I thought I was gonna like it. It seems like it's a horror movie that's kind of catered to my taste. It's catered to what I like to see, and it's catered to what I've always wanted to see James Wan. I've always liked James Wan. He's an excellent director. But I know that a lot of horror fans have problems with him because he's a mainstream director, because he, like The Conjuring, massive franchise he spawned. Saw, massive franchise he spawned. Insidious, another one. Maybe not as big as those, but it's still popular. And then if you factor in the fact that he did Aquaman, which, by the way, is the highest grossing film based on a DC Comics character. Yes, Aquaman has made more money than any Batman or Superman movie. And he did Fast and the Furious. So I think it's awesome that he took all of his clout, all of his success, and really he's one of the best, like one of the big blockbuster directors working today. I feel like now that I'm thinking it, he gets overlooked. We talk about like James Cameron or Christopher Nolan being one of the modern ones. I think James Wan is up there in terms of being one of the big mainstream filmmakers that can get asses in seats and spawn franchises. He took all that clout that he got from all the Aquaman movies, the massive success he got out of The Conjuring, and he did something for himself. He did something that's going to appeal mostly to, I think, hardcore horror fans and connoisseurs. This is, I did get to see this in an audience. I've seen it 3 times. The first time I saw it was in a theater. I could tell you a good chunk of the audience was cackling at it and was laughing and having a great time, and you could tell it was having a blast. The other people who were in the theater, when the lights went up, I could see the looks on faces, and it was like grim looks. People looked really confused. They didn't know what the hell they just saw or what smacked them in the face. So people going to this expecting another Conjuring or Insidious are not going to get it, and that's one of the things that's cool. It's James Wan taking his talent and upending expectations. The movie's batshit insane. It's ridiculous. It combines elements of Basket Case, Deep Red, a lot of Dario Argento films, a lot of Lucio Fulci in there, a lot of exploitation, and like so many different interesting tropes. And it's weird because it lifts from so many things, but he does something that I think Tarantino does. He takes all of these separate things that seem to come from different influences and makes something entirely original and new out of it. And it's one of those movies where it's easy to get lost in all of the things that it's paying homage to and all the things that it's referencing, but it never feels like a copycat of anything that came before. It's putting its own twist on it all. The movie is almost 2 hours. I thought it was like 80 or 90 minutes because it blows by so fast. It is paced. It's beautifully paced. It never lets up. And as it gets into the third act, it flies completely off the rails in the best way possible. Totally had me giggling and laughing the whole way through. James Wan is a fucking madman. I so appreciate it because let's be honest, this movie is not going to make its money back It's $40 million. This is not commercial enough, but I love that he took that clout and just made something for hardcore horror fans. So this is going to throw the mainstream off. And it's still very James Wan. All the things that people love of James Wan, how he directs the shit out of every scene, is there.
Much like his bigger budget movies, like the Fast and the Furious movie he did and Aquaman, you kind of have to like those kind of movies to see what's great about it.
Yes.
Like I would never normally watch a Fast and the Furious movie and enjoy it, but I enjoyed that one because I like James Wan's style, and it was good for what it is. He did the best version of that type of movie that you could do. I think it's the best out of all the Fast and the Furious movies. And as far as the superhero movies, I think he did about as good as with Aquaman as you can do, because he's one of he's always been kind of a joke compared to the other the other superheroes.
What James Wan did, I mean, it's not just him and Jason Momoa, of course, but what they basically did is took a character that has always been a pop culture punchline, Aquaman, always like the second fiddle to heroes like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and now Aquaman is not a joke in pop culture anymore. People take that character seriously now and have a completely different view, and it's largely because James Wan, like I said, more successful than any Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman movie, which I actually find kind of mind-blowing because nobody would ever have guessed that Aquaman would be the highest grossing DC movie, but here we are. James Wan is just that guy. But yeah, I get what you mean. I really love this movie, but I'm careful to who I recommend it to because I know it's not for most tastes, and I know a lot of people. Here's another thing. You have to have an appreciation for camp or campy horror, and I think you need a little bit of a sense of humor to appreciate this one. The Conjuring movies, as fantastic as they were, they're very serious movies, which is what's good about them because they take their topic very seriously. But I think that's what audiences connected to. It's like a ghost story that they could believe in, something that's very like serious, in tune to the times. This is not what most mainstream audiences go to horror movies for. This is what hardcore horror fans go to horror movies for. And I think that's going to be the dividing line between people who between people who love this and people who expected him to deliver another Conjuring film. And it was kind of advertised as another supernatural James Wan movie. And I'm not saying it's not, I'm not even saying what it is, but it upends so many expectations that I don't think you should look at the trailers straightforward and take them at face value.
Well, the Conjuring films were serious and dramatic, but they also had like a bit of an exploitation, bit of a crowd pleasing feel to them because of James Wan's style. So it was reality turned up a little bit as far as style, but this is James Wan's style turned way up, and people just don't seem to get that. They seem to think like he accidentally made a bad movie. He didn't. He made exactly the movie he wanted to make, and it spoke to me every step of the way, because not just because like you said, it didn't copy other movies like this. It just felt like those type of movies. The same type of things happened with the black gloved killer and the close up of the weapon, the stylized weapon, the kind of investigation aspect of it. And then, by the way, people are so proud of themselves for knowing the twist or predicting it from the beginning. First of all, it's made very obvious from the very first scene what it's going to be, because it's very clearly a female. You see the girl's socks and a girl's feet, and they're saying it's a guy. So you see they're giving you major hints from the beginning. He's not trying to fool you here.
I'll be honest, I kind of got spoilers from other people. I can't say, I'm not sure if I would have guessed it. Maybe some people are, or maybe some people are clever and proud of that, but I couldn't tell you whether or not if I would have guessed it if I wasn't given some side. I didn't have the movie spoiled for me, but I've heard people make too many comments online that I kind of got the general direction where it was leaning in without it ever being spoiled. And I guessed it kind of early on, but I don't know if I would have guessed it if I hadn't heard everybody on the internet yapping, to be honest.
Well, I somewhat guessed the twist, but I still thought it was a separate person from her.
Yeah.
I thought it was a completely separate person from her, like some kind of person with power that latched itself onto her. So I kind of got it, but the real twist, I think, is at the end, after the so-called big twist. I think with the way the tables are turned, that's the satisfying twist here.
Mm-hmm.
You
Although
know
I
what I
have
mean?
to say, when that twist came, everybody in the audience was totally shocked. I mean, even the people who I don't think were enjoying the movie were taken aback by that. I heard like audible, you could hear it in the audience, like "What the fuck" or shit like that. So I think he got what he wanted, but yeah, and like I was saying earlier, I don't think this is going to make its money back, and I don't. And I don't think Warner Brothers cares. I think they did this for him because he is such a valuable asset to them, and they know that with the upcoming Aquaman movie and all the Conjuring films that they kind of owed him this a little bit. Like they're gonna make their money back off of him in other ways, maybe not this way, but that way. But that's what's cool about this, that a mainstream director had the balls to come and make an exploitation film, make a modern day exploitation Giallo film, and just direct the shit out of it. And James Wan is known for his style, his camera angles, the way that he just draws out tension and the long takes that he does. I think all of that's on full display here, and I think it's a little bit more aggressive than it usually is because what he's going for is a lot more over the top. There are several line readings in this that had me busting up. I thought the characters were pretty amusing. I think people think it's bad because they don't understand the exploitation elements. And I guess it's bad, but it's intentionally quote unquote bad. I don't know if you would say bad. It's supposed to be the way it is. So if you don't really care for exploitation films or the humor that comes with it, you're probably not going to enjoy this. However, if that is your thing, you're going to have a fucking blast with this movie. I particularly
it's not
yeah, go on.
It's not bad in any way. It's just exaggerated.
Mm-hmm.
And like it has melodramatic line readings, but it's not straight eye roll melodramatic.
Mm-hmm.
It's just slightly exaggerated for effect. And some people are running around saying that that those of us who say that it's a tribute to Giallos are just saying that because they've seen that the audiences weren't going to take it seriously, so they claimed that it's influenced by Giallos, but it's so obvious.
No. I mean, whoever said that probably didn't really watch very many Giallos, because this is kind of like, I read one critic's review of this, and to describe the villain in this movie and the monster, and I think this is a good description. The villain that you see in this movie, and the way that it contorts and the way that it moves and the way that it's dressed, and like the black glove killer element, it's the kind of thing that you would dream up. It's the kind of thing that would enter your mind after watching way too many Giallo films, falling asleep and having a nightmare about them. This is what would come out of that. So it's like a nightmare mashup of every Giallo movie that you've ever seen. It's not any one particular, because that's such a common generalized trope in Giallo films. They all have black glove killers and they all dress kind of similar. Puts a little wrinkle to it, but it's the most nightmarish extreme version of that type of that type of horror villain.
And it's just that kinetic energy, and he tweaks it just right to where if you weren't dialed into the Giallo aesthetic, you might not get that he was being funny or campy on some of these certain parts. You might just think that you're watching a campy movie.
Yeah.
But if you're dialed in, if you've seen movies like this, again, it's not copying any certain thing. It's just the feel of it. The same types of things happen, not exactly the same things.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, it's James Wan's style is woven through this whole thing. Mm-hmm. Like the best of his style, like the camera shots. He goes from like handheld / steady cam to a tilted camera to a tracking shot, and all of it is just edited together to perfection. Mm-hmm. And it's just, he takes a standard scene and he just beefs it up and amps up everything in it by those camera shots. And it utilizes the acting perfectly. It utilizes the locations perfectly. And you get this big Gothic hospital at the beginning, and then you go from there to the central story, which is takes place inside a large craftsman style house, perfectly utilized inside and out throughout the film. And then you get into this story about a pregnant woman, and she goes through some domestic violence. So when you see that in an opening film, and you're introduced to a character that way, you think that it's going to be about the baby somehow, or it's going to be about domestic violence somehow, and all that's squashed right away.
Yeah.
The story makes short work of both of those things. And then, like you said, the sequences seem very supernatural at first, but especially after you watch it, you go back and watching it again, it all fits to the grand scheme of the whole thing. So he's kind of just baiting you,
I mean,
kind
it's
of
still
making you think
somewhat
it's supernatural.
I wouldn't say it's not supernatural, and I wouldn't say it is supernatural. It's not. I don't know how to put this. I have a hard time. I'm straining with it because it's not supernatural, but it's somewhat. It kind of is, if you know what I mean. And I can't really say without kind of spoiling it, but I'm pretty sure you understand what I mean. It's not really supernatural, but there's something vaguely supernatural about it.
And noises in the other room, and a dark figure creeping out of the shadows, and shit like that. And it comes off as supernatural, but then you see later on that it's not. But then you enter the cops into the story, and then that's when I think it gets really interesting, and you really start it really starts solidifying its Giallo roots. Because I thought the cops were interesting. I thought they stood out in the film. I thought actually it's hard to stand out in a film like this, with characters like these, because it's so big, it's so colorful, and so action-packed. It's hard to stand up. These guys definitely stood out.
My favorite character in this movie is actually Detective Regina Moss, played by Nicole Brianna White. I think she really stands out. All of her line readings had me cracking up. Her sarcasm, her wit, the way that she puts a lollipop into her mouth. I can't really describe it, but the way she flicks a lollipop into her mouth after like getting to the bottom of something, how's this her self-satisfiedness, the attitude that she gives, the things that she says, total one of my favorite characters in the movie. In fact, I would like to see another movie with that character expanded on. I could watch her investigate stuff all day and I probably would never get bored of it. But I really did enjoy the cast, but she was, for me, the one that always made me smile every time. Everything that she said made me laugh.
Same here. And everyone that I've seen say this, please stop calling her a dime store Wanda Sykes. It makes you sound stupid when you say that. I saw like 3 different people say that. I love all the montages in this. A montage is another thing that's big in Giallo films. And that's what really felt the most Giallo to me, were the montages. The montages of her locking down the house. That felt like James Wan doing a Giallo film for sure right there, because you had the montage of the locking down or the getting the weapons ready mixed with James Wan's overhead shots, tracking shots, panning shots.
I mean,
strategically placed slow-mo. It's all good.
It's stuff that Dario Argento used to revel in. If you go back, I can watch like Deep Red, the way that the killer like prepares everything and the camera keeps gliding over it. You could tell that he really absorbed all of these films into his DNA. I wanted to mention the weapon. The weapon that he uses is actually that the villain uses in this movie is like Gabriel. The weapon that Gabriel uses in this movie is sort of like it's like a trophy dagger, like a golden trophy dagger with like weird spirals on it. It is the coolest looking weapon I've seen in a horror movie in a very, very, very long time. It takes everything that you liked about the over-the-top weapons that a lot of Giallo villains use and pushes it to the next level and gives it an extra piece of refinement. The moment that and you'll know the scene when it comes up. The moment when the killer is in the house of one of their victims, the camera just pans over, and at the bottom of the frame, you see that big golden weapon just gleaming right there at the bottom of the frame. And if you watch Giallo movies, you know instantly that's James Wan telling you this is going to come into play very soon in a very interesting way. Coolest weapon I've seen in a horror movie in a very long time.
And it also shows the trophy kind of prominently displayed behind the doctor as she's doing her work. Mm-hmm. So you get a shot of it. And I remember thinking when I first saw it, oh, I hope he uses that as a weapon. And sure enough, so you see it behind the doctor and you kind of wish he's going to use it as a weapon. Then it's kind of showed that one shot you saw about it laying in the floor. And then it's used to, so you got another shot of it teasing you. Then it's used to bludgeon someone to death. Then it's taken apart and sharpened in a cool little montage sequence, and then it's used to stab. And then you have that one of my favorite shots of the movie is that great little slow-mo shot of the killer just in the attic, just reaching down and picking it up. So Giallo and so cool.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. And I like that as the movie goes along, it keeps escalating and escalating. It starts off, like you said, you think that you're going to watch some kind of domestic horror drama. It almost starts off in the vein of something more like The Invisible Man, where you think it's going to be about, and there seems to be a lot of horror movies about this lately, about bad boyfriends who gaslight their girlfriends and treat them in a very abusive manner. You see it in Midsommar, you see it in Invisible Man. And I think that's them teasing at what, kind of like modern expectations of horror movies, like going in that trope. And then it just completely kicks that aspect out the door. It touches on it a little bit here and there again, but not too much. But I like that it kind of takes that, kicks it out the door, and goes in a bunch of different directions with this movie. I'm also very impressed by all of the kill scenes. They're very imaginative. They're very well staged. They're energetic. They're kinetic. They're bloody. They're gory. They're violent. There is CGI used, but I think it's used sparingly, and I only think it's used for like a couple of the transformation scenes. I mean, of course, you can't transfer a house organically. You have to use CGI. So that's the only part I really noticed CGI. Maybe some of the blood might have been, but I'm not sure. The only one things I noticed was the house transformation. Yeah, it's a movie that I had a blast for. I'm gonna share. I've showed it to a friend, and I know he liked it a lot. I'm gonna be showing this to a lot of people, but I know the type of person who I can show it to. It's definitely not for everybody, but I know the type of person who's gonna be dialed into something like this.
Yeah, and I also loved from the moment I heard that James Wan was going to use real locations in this and not sound stages. And I knew that he fully utilizes sound stages in his camera shots and stuff. So I wasn't actually expecting the same type of shots, but I still got them in a real location. The only thing I can figure out how he did that, when she was going through and locking down the whole house and he was above her going room to room, the only thing I can think of, I don't think he cut the ceiling out of that or cut the walls or anything. I think they just took the camera and had it go through one room, stop, put it in the next room, have it go through that one, and just appear to have a steady flow through the house. That's all I can figure out.
So you don't think so you think that's edited to make it look like a long take, but isn't actually a long take?
I think so. On the third time watching it, I was watching it real close, and some of her movements as she goes through don't match perfectly. So I'm thinking he just gets to the wall and then stops and then hands it off to the next, and kind of goes through. Is really elaborate shots in this.
I mean, that kind of reminds me of Death Sentence, the car scene in the parking garage where he kind of keeps passing it on to. But yeah, very characteristic of James Wan. That makes sense.
And he has these great, a little bit better than reality, a little bit more colorful than reality. He takes these cool scenes and then gives them this cool creative lighting where you can see depth of field going all the way back, especially when they get underground, because they have the big Gothic hospital scene at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Then they have this big Craftsman style house that they utilize, have great shots of. And then they find another cool scene with the underground Seattle. Now this, the tour of Old Seattle is a real tour where they have a city that they kind of built the city over years ago to avoid flooding. But it's perfectly utilized in the film to help with the Gothic old world feel to it. And then the music kind of matched that. Did you notice how the music would get kind of subdued in certain parts and then it would go big and kind of retro? It's great kind of ebb and flow, but it still felt bold. Usually when a score has ebb and flow like this, it doesn't call attention to itself a lot. But here I thought it was good. I thought it served the story a lot and then swelled in just the right spots to really give you that, just to hold on to that exciting feeling that it has through the whole thing. And then
reading about that, the underground city in Seattle, like that's something that's rarely ever touched upon in movies about Seattle or movies that take place in that area. So it's a big rarity to see that piece of history on film. It's not something, for some reason, I'm actually surprised, because the idea of an actual city being buried underneath Seattle seems like it's ripe for cinematic possibility. And of all the movies that have taken place in Seattle, I'm surprised that none have ever really taken advantage of that or that location.
Yeah. And then some of the creative shots he uses, like what about that shot from inside the washer? You're inside the washer as Madison is putting stuff into it, and then it kind of dollies towards her, and then right outside the washer you get a scare, and it's not just a scare, it's something very creative where it's kind of, it has to do with the changing of her reality, which every time her reality is changed, I thought it was done just the right amount of times and just the right time to really drive the story home. Especially that highly memorable scene from the trailer where she kind of feels somebody's looking at her, so she wakes up in bed and some old man is sitting next to her, and then the reality changes behind her. The one scene kind of morphs into another one, and you see Gabriel kind of rise over and climb over her. I think that's one of the best shots of the movie, and in the context of the movie, I thought it was even better than it was in the trailer.
Yeah.
And all those shots in the killer in the attic plotting his revenge reminded me very much of The Crow. So it had some good gothic sequences like that of the guy in the attic. And the Crow's like a kind of an exploitation film in its own right. And then that other shot of her changing reality where she's laying in bed, and then her face just illuminates, because you see one location and the victim is there's a red light outside the victim's window, and all of a sudden when you show Madison, before you even know that her reality is changing, her face turns red, and you hear the buzz of the neon. I thought that was so effective. Like he figures out a different creative way to make every change of reality like that feel fresh and cool. He adds something cool about it every time. And also the killer's voice through the radio. I thought it was always effective through the radio or through the phone. I thought it was always effective, done just right. And then all the VHS tapes. There was a lot of viewing of VHS tapes I thought all worked. First, thanks to how they advanced the story, and then thanks to the performance by McKenna Grace as a young Madison. I thought she did a lot for those flashbacks and for those VHS viewings.
One of the things I want to mention, this isn't a meta horror film. That's not how I would describe it. But I like that the characters in the movie seem to be recognized that they are caught up in a very absurd, over-the-top situation, and they kind of reacting to that like this can't be real at different turns. The way that the cops react to every revelation that just seems so over the top that they can't believe that it's actually happening. The part where the sister goes down to investigate and look for the tapes, and of course, like every horror movie trope, it's going to be at the bottom, at the basement. She's like, of course it's at the basement. I like that.
Yeah.
It's not meta, that's not what it is, but it seems that the characters are very aware that what they're caught up in is borderline horror movie situation, or not borderline, but a horror movie situation. There seems to be the way that they recognize what they're caught up in is insane.
Yeah. And what my favorite kill was probably that stabbing of that old man in the face. Because Gabriel stands over him with that weapon and holds it like in his fist like that, and his face like breaks apart, and it's awesome.
There are a couple of my favorite gore scenes, but I don't want to describe them because I don't want to ruin this for the audience. But my favorite scene, and the one that had me like most jumping out of my seat and laughing my ass off and kind of horrified at the same time, is the moment where she is in the jail cell with all the other female prisoners. And that's the one where we see Zoe Bell. That whole sequence is so over the top, and the way that it's edited, and it's edited in such a way that there's escalating tension inside that jail cell, and you don't know where it's going to head. You're not sure, but it's edited back and forth with the home videos that you were talking about. So there's a revelation building up about this character just as something wild is supposed to come out, like the way that they kind of work in tandem to each other. You know something's about to go wrong in the jail cell. You don't know what. A little bit more revelation about her. You know something is getting worse. Like it has like this kind of building of tension between those two scenes. And then once you realize what it is and the twist is revealed and it just stays inside the jail cell, all hell breaks loose, and it's one of the most memorable scenes in horror I've probably seen in the last 5 years. One of the ones that had me most giddy and had me just laughing, horrified, smiling. I don't know how to describe it. It made me happy. Maybe I'm a sick, twisted fuck, but that sequence really made me happy.
Oh yeah, when it first starts going back and forth, it's kind of subtle the way things are kind of escalating in the prison.
But
It's kind of subtle. They go back and forth, and then once the reveal is shown, then
Boom.
it gets turned up to 11, dude.
Yeah.
And then you got in a short amount of time, you got a neck rip, an arm break, hand through a body, head stomp, another neck break. It's insane.
You're missing quite a few things, but I think there's too many things to even count.
Oh yeah,
a lot.
that
And of course, we don't want to spoil it for you. You got to see it for yourself.
yeah.
But yeah, one of the best
was,
horror sequences of the past 5-10 years, maybe.
Yeah, that was just the beginning of that kill sequence, because it was like kill after kill after kill, and then it just keeps going for way longer than you expect it to. And by the way, that was a very obvious women in prison scene. You got the black girl with an afro dressed in a 70s disco outfit.
That's totally a Pam Grier. I talked about her, and that to me, that is totally a Pam Grier thing going on right there.
You got Zoe Bell with the full denim and that ridiculous mullet. Is so obviously women in prison.
Which is always a fun genre, which is not something you expected him to roll in there too, but here we are. Exploitation women in prison films are put into the fold. But yeah,
and that kind of rolls into Outside the Precinct, and that kind of rolls into another scene. It's just so kinetic in it, and I thought every scene and every story beat and every reveal is exciting and kinetic, and it's exaggerated just enough to make it pop off the screen. Mm-hmm. And then you got a little body horror in the beginning, and then when you get to that end sequence, the body horror is turned up to 10. Mm-hmm. So you got so many great aspects of like exploitation films and Giallo films that are just thrown in here to perfection. And then that fight sequence in the
even a touch of surrealism, not overwhelming, but little touches and flashes of it, I think.
Yeah, and then the fight sequence in the police precinct room.
Oh yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, that could be right up there with any action sequence in modern years. Oh, just yeah. Not only I won't give too much away, but not only the fighting, but the style of the fighting that the villain has to do in order to fit with the story. It's just it's crazy. It's a little disturbing. It's strange. It's funny. It's everything. It's everything I love about horror, all packed into that scene. Like, I've always loved action horror, and this is like James Wan's best action sequences mixed with like disturbing, strange, bold horror.
Yeah, I wanted to find the contortion. Marina Mazeppa. Marina Mazeppa is the contortionist who's actually performing as the killer, as Gabriel in the black suit and the black goes. She does a tremendous job because a lot of it looks like it could be CGI, but it's not. It's actually somebody really moving. And I'm not going to say how they move. You have to see it for yourself, but they move in very unnatural, counterintuitive ways that bodies should not be able to move. The way that they jump and fight, it's highly unnatural. And before it even comes across that way, before you even realize why it's so unnatural and so weird and so strange, it's kind of like that through the whole way. But yeah, Marina Mazeppa deserves a lot of credit. Just as good as any of the actors in this movie, and I know that name's probably going to get overlooked because it's not like an acting performance, but it brings a lot to the physicality of the role and to the film's villain, and it does a lot to make the villain seem menacing because it's not. We're used to black glove killers and people coming out of you, but we're not used to killers moving in ways that this one moves. It's just so unnatural that it's jarring that you might be able to, like, let's say. And of course, this is just putting myself in the head of the characters. If you saw somebody dressed like that coming at you like a normal person, you would probably be scared, but you would probably be ready to fight or hit something back. the way that this thing moves is so unnatural and so unusual that I think most people would be so jarred that they would not have time to think about how they're going to fight it off or what they're going to do, because it so dislocates reality in so many ways that it kind of like puts you in this headspace where you wouldn't know how you would how you would fight something like that.
Yeah, I wonder how the contortionist, if the contortionist was also in that big chase scene with the young cop.
I believe so.
Where he chased him all the way down the building, and he was basically free falling down the fire escape and then grabbing onto a railing.
Mm-hmm.
It was really and did that chase remind you of Seven as much as it did me? When Brad Pitt first chases the killer down the fire escape and then down the street, and he kind of gets hurt.
I didn't think of that, and that never popped to mind, but that makes sense. I mean, this movie has so many different influences and takes from so many different places that I wouldn't be surprised if that's what it's supposed to be. Thinking about it, it probably actually is an homage to Seven, now that I'm thinking back on it.
I thought it was a really exciting chase, just the way that thing moved. And then some people were complaining, like, we're supposed to suspend disbelief, like the cops wouldn't be able to shoot that thing. And I was kind of expecting that, but it's somewhat believable the way that thing was moving, that they would keep missing, because it's really hard to hit a moving target like that.
I mean, as far as that complaint goes, I mean, here's my thing. I think part of the contract, and we're going to talk about this next week when we interview horror author S.A. Bradley. Part of the contract of going into a movie like this in horror is that you're going to suspend your disbelief. The horror genre is filled with spectacular, over-the-top things that would never happen in real life. So to suspend your disbelief for that in a horror movie, there's a lot of things in this movie that would never happen. The way that game communicates doesn't make sense. I could go off on a couple things that would be plot holes, but I don't really think that that's what the filmmakers that's what James Wan had in mind. I'm pretty sure he's aware that there's things that don't quite add up. You're watching a horror movie. This is not meant to make perfect sense or line up 100. This is meant to give you a kinetic thrill. It's meant to entertain you. It's meant to shock you. It's meant to excite you. It's meant to scare you. It's meant to make you laugh. So I don't really, I guess it's a valid complaint, but it's not one that I really care for, because horror is too filled with ridiculous concepts for me to be harping on things like that.
Yeah, and people are like, why is the killer so strong? Why is Jason so strong? Why is Michael Myers so strong?
Why does Freddy visit you in dreams?
Yeah.
Why is there a killer? Why is Chucky possessed by? Like, come on, it's horror.
Yeah. And do you remember like high caliber acting in Evil Dead, or do you remember a little bit exaggerated acting?
No, it's cheesy acting in the Evil Dead. It's intentionally cheesy, but it doesn't matter. I mean, Bruce Campbell obviously kicked ass more in the sequels to that, but a lot of the best horror films that we think back on are not filled with like Oscar-winning performances. We don't go. I mean, there are great horror films with Oscar-worthy performances. I'm not going to say it's not capable of that, but these types of horror films are not going for that. So that's not even a fair metric or standard to judge it by. This isn't Rosemary's Baby. This isn't Hereditary or The Witch. This is Malignant. This is a modern day Basket Case, a modern day Deep Red, a modern day Lucio Fulci film. I mean, any movie that's also going to take time to do all of these exploitation elements and then do a tribute to women in prison films is not going for a serious tone. If you're paying tribute to like a women in prison flick, you know what you're going for.
Yeah, you got an opening scene that ends with, "We need to cut out the cancer." And then you got a final scene that ends with, "Next time, I'll be ready." Mm-hmm. Of course it's exploitation, my God.
Yeah.
It ends in such a Giallo exploitation fashion, just up like the beginning, just like the middle. So get over it. Have fun with this movie, dude. It's so fun.
Yeah. I would recommend it in the theater too.
Yeah, and by the way, there's a place for all of it. There's a place for serious bone-jarring horror like Hereditary and The Witch. There's a place for silly, over-the-top action horror Giallo like this one. There's a place for hybrid movies. There's a place for big budget cheese. There's a place for low budget cheese. if you love horror, you just love all of it, and just learn to appreciate stuff like this. And then you can enjoy a classic when it's here, instead of realizing 10 years down the line that it's a classic and Gabriel has become another iconic horror villain.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a cult film. Cult film. I think the kind of reputation and the audience is going to build over the years is going to be different from most of James Wan's other horror movies, just because of the nature of what it is. But yeah, I could see this becoming a big cult film in the upcoming years, and I can imagine 10 years from now we're going to be reassessing it, and a lot of people are going to be looking at it a lot different.
Like I'm getting skinny and growing out my hair longer just so I can be Gabriel for Halloween next year.
Yeah. So lot to love in this movie. Big, bold, exciting. James Wan spinning off into new directions. I really dig it. Highly recommend it for horror fans out there, hardcore horror fans especially.
And by the way, he subverted my expectations too.
Mm-hmm.
I expected it to be a bone-jarringly scary, something scarier than The Conjuring 2. I thought it was going to be like insane, serious horror.
Yeah,
because that's what I expected James Wan to do with, if he was going to take a step down from his huge blockbuster movies to do a little horror movie. I thought that's what he was going to do. But I was just as delighted, if not more delighted, with what I got.
mm-hmm.
So I'm not like a lot of fans where it ends up being completely at the opposite of what I expected, but I can still appreciate it for what it is. Mm-hmm. So for what it is, it's excellent, and probably my favorite horror film of the year.
Mine too. I would agree. So yes, please go check out Malignant. It is go see it in theaters. It's worth seeing in theaters. I think it's worth the big screen experience. However, I understand not everybody can do that. That's just the way the world is right now. If you can't, it's on HBO Max, so you have multiple ways to check it out right now.
And I saw it 3 times, and definitely out of the 3 times I saw it, the one time I saw it at Alamo Drafthouse while we were in Texas, that's the best time I saw it, because they play the audio so loud there, so loud that it almost hurts your ears on certain parts, and I love that in a horror film, especially a James Wan horror film.
Speaking of Texas, you have a lot to share with us, don't you?
Yes, I was lucky enough to attend Texas Frightmare Weekend this year. It's my first Texas Frightmare Weekend. My friend Newt Hernandez took me, and I had an absolute blast. I did so much stuff there. It's by far the best horror convention I've ever been to, and I've been to quite a few. I did so much that I have to go day by day. All right, I got there Wednesday, and the convention was to start on Friday. So I got there Wednesday. The first thing we had to do is get the hotel room and go get some Texas barbecue. Texas barbecue lives up to its reputation. Joe Bob talks about it all the time. It is so good. You go into a restaurant and there's a big vat of meat just grilling there. They have it all open. So you go in there and just pick a few slabs of meat, and they slap it on your plate, and you slide inside, and then you pick your sides and everything. So the Texas barbecue was on point.
Do they have vegan options?
No vegan options.
No vegan options. So it's for Joe Bob, not for Darcy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then Thursday we had to take another Joe Bob recommendation and go to Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel had a great breakfast.
Barrel. I only ate there one time earlier this year with you in Philadelphia. It was so good.
Yeah, had a great breakfast at Cracker Barrel. Then we went to the Dallas Aquarium, which was awesome, seeing a bunch of fish and shark and monkeys and birds and everything you can think of. That was really cool.
Did you have a horror story there too? Were you like Damien, where the animals swarmed you guys and started attacking and going wild? Anything like that happen?
I know, right? No.
No, okay. Just checking.
They're squawking a lot though.
Okay.
And then we went to see a special screening of A Clockwork Orange. It was at the Texas Theater, historic Texas Theater. It's the one where Lee Harvey Oswald went and hid after he shot JFK. So it's a little piece of history, and it's a very well curated theater. I felt like I was in a place with a lot of history there. And Malcolm McDowell, he was there, and he loved it too. That was a spirited and hilarious Q&A.
You said it was 4K. Go on, go on.
Yeah, it was a 4K restoration, and it looked beautiful. I've never seen a Clockwork Orange like that. It looked like it was filmed yesterday. It was so crisp and polished. I couldn't believe it.
It doesn't take away from it, or it doesn't look too clean. Or that's always my worry with like certain movies when they're I like obviously you want them to look the best that they can, but like a good example I would be is like the Maniac 4K restoration. I think they cleaned it up a little bit too much for my taste. I think they could have
Yeah.
left it a little bit grimier because I'm pretty sure it never looked that crisp, but it doesn't do anything like that.
No, now I know with Kubrick, the more you can polish it up, the better, because he just a beautiful filmmaker.
Okay, obviously I should have thought about it. Kubrick is not an exploitation filmmaker. He is an art filmmaker. So yeah, you're right. 100%.
So I appreciate it in a whole new way, seeing it in a historic theater, and then Malcolm McDowell coming out, and he just like playfully ribbed all the people coming up asking questions. Like everyone was a little nervous asking questions. Even I didn't dare ask one. But if they would stumble over their questions a little bit, or they wouldn't articulate what they were trying to say, he would just make them feel silly, and we had everybody cracking up. But so that was a very entertaining Q&A with Malcolm McDowell. And then we came back to the hotel and we went to get our VIP swag bag. Now, when you go to Texas Frightmare or any kind of convention, it is 100% worth it to get that VIP. When we went to get the VIP swag bag, it had a Texas Frightmare glass in it. They had a shot glass, a T-shirt, a signed print of Corey Taylor from Slipknot, 3 DVDs, a Black Society DVD trilogy, a Weird Science Blu-ray on Steelbook from Arrow Video, all kinds of stickers, pins, a bunch of stuff from Nightmare Toys. And one of our favorite things was the Papa's Peckers pack of candy. It was from Circus of the Dead. It had Papa Corn on the front of it with his big cartoon dick hanging out and a bunch of little dick-shaped candies. So that was cool.
So if you want to munch on some cock, get that, right?
Yeah, if you want to munch on Papa Corn's little dick.
Okay.
So it also came with the VIP wristband and lanyard. You get 5 line skips. So if you're waiting in line for an autograph and you're tired of waiting, you get 5 chances to go all the way up to the front of the line. So that's very valuable right there. Because you've been to a convention before, you spend half your time waiting in line.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get those line skips, you get right to the front of the line, and you get a coupon for a free autograph from anyone there, up to a $40 value. So that was Thursday. Friday we get up and the thing's all begun. Everyone's in their cosplay. Everyone's running around, and apparently it was half capacity because of COVID. I couldn't tell. The place was packed. The first one I talked to was the great David Gregory that we interviewed here on the podcast.
Founder of Severin Films. For all you out there, one of the premier boutique labels for cult films and cult cinema.
Yeah, and he's also the director of one of my favorite indie horror films, Plague Town. So I love seeing him there. He knew me right away. He told his wife, "Hey, it's Michael Picco."
Mm-hmm.
So I sat down and talked to him for a while, and I wanted to. He had the Santa Sangre box set. Have you guys seen the Santa Sangre box set? It spreads out. It's got posters. It's got full feature-length documentaries. It's got artwork. It's got all this stuff in it.
That's a Severin release, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense because I actually have a Jodorowsky box set from Arrow Video. Like a Blu-ray has like the Holy Mountain, El Topo, Fondo y Lis, but it doesn't have Santa Sangre, and I'm guessing it's because Severin has it.
Yeah, he had it for only $40, but I had a plan set in place for exactly what I was going to get, and that didn't fit into my plan. But I wanted to just get it with money I didn't have so bad, because one thing you'll realize if you go to these conventions, a lot of these boutique labels like Severin and Vinegar Syndrome and them, they have things at least $10 cheaper than they do on the site. Yeah.
And this is what I got brought back from Texas, my Vinegar Syndrome shirt for those watching on YouTube.
Yeah, so go to these conventions, buy from the vendors because they charge less at the conventions than they do on their sites. So then we went to get a picture taken, a professional photo op with the great Tom Atkins. If you're a horror fan, you love Tom Atkins as much as I do. Maniac Cop, Night of the Creeps, Halloween 3. Yes, he is such a badass. And I came up to him and I said, "Sir, you are such a legend." He's ha ha ha. So he's humble too, so that makes him even more of a legend.
Yeah.
And then we went to meet Charles Band from Full Moon Pictures. He's the owner of Full Moon Pictures and the director of so many great movies, Dangerous Toys and Demonic Toys, I mean. And so we went to the world premiere of Baby Oopsie, and they gave free beer. And it's definitely the kind of movie where you want a beer in each hand to watch Baby Oopsie. Okay. It was so good. It was no going into Baby Oopsie that it's dumb and it's silly and campy, but it's so entertaining and so funny. So I highly recommend watching Baby Oopsie. She got her own movie. And then that night, Friday night, was the 1921 New Year's Ball opening night party. So they went with the theme of The Shining with the 1921 New Year's Ball. Those great costumes. We got it up on our TikTok of a guy dressed in a really great Freddy cosplay, and he was dancing with a Freddy dinosaur.
Freddy Source.
Yeah, and we had those two girls that it was a female Patrick Bateman from American Psycho and a female Leatherface. They were really cool. The Miner was there. I got a picture with the Miner. It was a really good Miner cosplay.
My buddy Valentine.
Yeah. Jack Torrance and the Grady twins were at cosplays. Like they had a door set up with red rum on it, and they had the hole for Jack to peek his head through, so everybody could go up and take pictures and everything. So they had that there. A bunch of people in 1921 garb, so that was pretty cool. But a lot of bad music mixed with good music. A lot of really bad old pop music, like Right Said Fred and shit like that. I'm like, do you guys really think it's like I'm too sexy for my shit?
Oh,
too sexy for
come
my
on.
shit.
That has to be ironic, Michael. Come on, that has to be ironic. That couldn't be serious.
It was a bunch of really bad pop music, and then they started playing like Depeche Mode and Rob Zombie and stuff like that. So I got out there and danced for that. So that was a really fun opening night party. So then we come to Saturday. The first panel that we went to was Children of the Corn panel. It was the director, Fritz Kirsch, Courtney Gaines, that played Malachi, John Franklin, who played Isaac, and then John Philbin. He's the good-looking guy who sacrificed himself in the field. He had a short part, but it's the first time the cast and the director had been together since they made the movie. So they had a lot of really cool stories behind it. Courtney Gaines and John Franklin as the Isaac and Malachi, they were especially entertaining. They were just happy to be there. And I guess John Franklin has become a writer-director, so he actually did some of the reboots and stuff of the Children of the Corn series. So that was a really entertaining panel. I went straight from that one to the Candyman panel, and that one was even more entertaining. It was Tony Todd and DeJuan Guy, the little kid from the original Candyman. So we have pieces of all these panels on we'll be putting them up on our TikTok.
Yeah. So check our TikTok page. Definitely check it out. Horror Show Official at Horror Show Official, because a lot of the stuff that Mike is sharing with you is up there, and we have a lot more to come to. We're unrolling it very slowly.
Yeah, and by the way, since I had the VIP ticket, also in all the panels you get first dibs on the front row seats. In all the panels. So in every single panel, I got like third row. So that was really cool. Tony Todd came out. The whole crowd chanted Tony Todd's name 5 times to get him to come out. So that was pretty cool. And he just came out in such high spirits. He had a great time. He was in the Candyman panel. He's also in the Night of the Living Dead remake panel, the 30-year anniversary.
With Tom Savini.
He was much more spirited and entertaining in the Candyman one, because that's his movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's more because he is Candyman. That's what he's always been known. I mean, Night of the Living Dead is a big part of his career, but that's just like a movie he's part of versus a movie where he is the star, the center of attention, the reason we all come to see. So of course he's going to be more spirited during the Candyman panel. That's what I would expect.
Yeah, and by the way, Tony Todd was gushing over the new Candyman. He absolutely loves it. He went on and on about it, and he went so far as to asking. He was like reprimanding everybody in the audience because there was about maybe 15-20% of the audience said that they'd seen the new Candyman. I couldn't believe it myself. I was like, we're at a horror convention. That's one of the biggest releases in the last few months, and you guys didn't go see it yet? I couldn't, and Tony Todd couldn't believe it either. And some of the people started saying, I haven't seen it, so don't say anything about the new Candyman. And a few of us who've seen it were like, boo, boo. And like, all right, we'll talk about it. Jeez. So that was an awesome panel. And another great panel was the Terrifier panel with Damien Leone and David Howard Thornton. They showed 4 minutes of Terrifier 2. It was awesome and funny. It's going to be great. And they did a great job teasing this. It made me want to see the movie even more.
As a side note, go back and check out our interview with David Howard Thornton, Art the Clown, that we did on the podcast last year. Really good interview, I think.
So the 4-minute preview of Terrifier 2 was mostly comedy. It was just strange comedy. It was Art kind of stalking the main character who's played by Lauren Rivera. If you've seen the previews and stuff too, you know that the main character's the main final girl is going to have a Valkyrie outfit. So it's when she's in a costume shop and she's first trying on the outfit and she's putting on the wings, and Art is kind of stalking her around the store. And then the biggest gag in the clip was him standing next to a turnstile of sunglasses and him putting on different. So every time she turned around, he had some different goopy sunglasses on. It sounds hammier than it actually was. It's actually pretty hilarious. So then we left a Terrifier panel, and then I know I already got a picture made with Tom Atkins, but I had to get his autograph too, because since I had a free autograph coupon I didn't expect. So I got a 8x10 autograph of Tom Atkins from Night of the Creeps. So we had a cool little moment with him. I went up and told him, I said, well, Tom, we had a picture with you yesterday, and I said that you were a legend, and you laughed at me. I said, of course you are. And he just laughed at me again. But my friend Newt brought these paint pens. And apparently they're the best paint pens on the market. They write really good, and they really pop off of a picture. So I guess when you sit there at a convention and you're signing all day, you learn to appreciate the fine art of pen making. So he was going on and on about how great that pen was, and we went to walk off, and then Newt was telling me, just give him the pen. It's like, oh, okay. So I turned around and set it down, and we went to walk away, and he was gushing over it. He said, oh, thank you so much. You guys are so sweet. So we had a nice little exchange with the great Tom Atkins. That made my weekend right there.
As a side, and then, you know how important these pins are? This is going to sound just a random, because the time I met Nancy Allen and she signed 3 of my movies, she signed each of them in a different color. Like she switched the pen for each one, I guess, to whatever the cover was, to put a color that goes a little bit more with the cover of the movie that she was signing. It was Blowout, Carrie, and Dress to Kill. As a sign of, so yeah, it is a thing with people at conventions, the art of the pen.
Yeah, I love that when the stars go above and beyond to make it extra special for you.
Yeah.
Those are the coolest. Then we had another panel, as I mentioned before, the 30 Years of Night of the Living Dead. It featured Tom Savini, Tony Todd, William Butler, Patricia Tallman, and McKee Anderson. It was a surprisingly touching panel. The people seemed very honored to be a part of this film. And Tom Savini was entertaining as always, and he really made me want to buy his book. He was up there selling that book. Apparently, Tom Savini...
Do you know how many people... Go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, apparently Tom Savini wrote an entire book of everything that he pitched that he was supposed to do for Night of the Living Dead and didn't get to do. And from some of the stuff they described on this panel, this is a must-read book because he wanted to do all kinds of crazy shit with this movie.
This isn't my take, but do you know how many people have told me I look like Tom Savini? How many times I've gotten that, especially amongst horror fans? You got that look. I get that all the time, and I have a picture with Tom Savini I took one time, My friend Eddie showed it to his dad, and he thought that was my dad. I was like, no, this is not my dad. But I get that a lot. It's a funny side note, yeah.
You got to get a picture with him.
I do have a picture with him.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. My friend Eddie. That's what I was saying. My friend Eddie, he showed his dad a picture I have with Tom Savini.
Oh.
He thought that was my dad. I was like, no, that's just a picture at a convention of meeting each other. But I get that all the damn time. I don't see it,
So
but people say so. Sure, he's a legend, so I'll take it.
Well, it says the dark black hair with the light features, you know.
Okay, I guess I could see
I think
that.
you kind of look like him. Yeah. So after that, we went to see a movie. It was called A Ghost Waits. This was one of the highlights of the whole trip. It's written and directed by Adam Stovall.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very emotional movie, dramatic movie. It also has a great wit to it. As being a writer myself, this really inspired me as a writer because this guy, he was on point. It's a movie about a ghost who she has a supervisor and everything, and her job is to go to this house anytime anybody moves into it and scare them out of it. So she meets this guy that's kind of down on his luck, and he's there to just clean the house out for the next people. So it gets into this very existential conversation with the ghost, and then he ends up falling for her, and then she's not scaring him away, so the supervisor sends an even scarier ghost to scare her away. So it's got a little bit of camp to it, but it takes like a campy premise and a campy delivery, and then it kind of turns dramatic and very heartfelt and soulful before you even know it. It kind of the writing kind of lulls you into that, and by the end of it, it really touches your heart.
What is it called again?
A Ghost Waits. It's on Arrow Video.
Okay, all right, I'll keep that in mind.
So I highly recommend that one. Adam Stovall actually came on before the movie and said that he was actually contemplating suicide, and he was thinking of how he was going to do it, and that's how he came up with the idea of A Ghost Waits. So he spent the next five years of his life making this movie a reality. So he said it quite literally saved his life, and I believe it when you see it, because you just have to see it to believe it, what kind of movie this is and how it gets under your skin in all the best ways.
Okay.
Then after that, I missed like the last 5 minutes of A Ghost Waits because I was enjoying Ghost Waits so much I almost missed the photo op with Kane Hodder. So I was loving the movie so much, for a split second I actually said, fuck it, I'll just skip the Kane Hodder photo op and I want to watch the rest of this movie. And I was like, no, I'll regret it.
There's no way that Newt would let you do that either. I know. You're like,
no.
Kane Hodder.
And it was funny too because Newt and I went into the room, and they kind of just usher you in and out when they're doing the photo ops, but it looks really good. It's really high quality pictures. They're really well lit. But we went in there, and he was in his Jason outfit, and you can hear him talk from underneath it. It's, hey guys, how you doing? And he put his arm around us, and then they get ready to take the picture, and he squeezes our heads like he starts choking us. And from what I've heard, you haven't had a real Texas Frightmare experience unless Kane Hodder has choked you. So I've had an official choking by Kane Hodder, so I've been initiated. Then we had a photo op with Art the Clown. Art the Clown was in makeup, and Damien Loney actually put him in makeup while we were there at the convention. And Art the Clown gave me a little bunny ears. We actually interviewed him a few months ago on the podcast as well, so I'm familiar with him. So he gave me bunny ears.
Please check that
and
out.
Then
I believe it's episode 66 or 67 where we interview David Howard Thornton.
Yeah, that was a great interview. So he's a very funny guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then that night at the hotel, we watched Werewolves Within, which is a funny little werewolf movie. It's a great quirky comedy, but as far as a werewolf film, if you go into this looking for a great werewolf film, you're not going to get it. It's a quirky comedy. So I might talk about it later on in the podcast, but we watched that Saturday. And then it came up on the last day, Sunday. And unfortunately, this brings me to the autograph that I missed. I have a framed photo of this great Candyman poster, and I was going to get Tony Todd to sign it with the pen that's the same color as the honey on the poster. I had it all planned, but then he was in 2 panels in a row on Saturday. He did the Candyman and the Night of the Living Dead panel, so I was going to get it after the panels. For some reason, after the panels, he had disappeared for a long time. People waited in line for a while, and then we had to go to some photo ops and
Disappeared?
Yeah, he was.
Why didn't you
gone for a
just say
long
his
time.
name 5 times?
I know, right?
Come on, Michael. You know how to summon the Candyman. You've seen the movie enough times.
I know that would have brought him back.
Yeah.
So since we had to go to more screenings and photo ops and panels, I didn't get him on Saturday. I was going to get him on Sunday, but then he didn't come on Sunday. So I completely missed out on getting Tony Todd's autograph, but I got enough to make up for it.
Yeah.
So because I didn't get Tony Todd's autograph, I got Ed Neal, who played the hitchhiker in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I got his autograph. Had a cool little exchange with him. He had a whole spiel about his towel. I went to give him a Blu-ray, like a special edition Blu-ray of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And he took it and looked at it, and he held up his towel, and he said, "Now here you got my magic towel." He said, "Now in the Blu-rays like this, you got these little fingerprints. And then the oil from the fingerprints kind of mix with the ink, and it kind of messes up your autograph." So he said, "I'm going to take my magic towel here, and I'm going to wipe it off real good." He went through a whole spiel about that, and then he was talking about the filming of it. And he's one of those stars that loves to talk. He just loves that he's the hitchhiker. He loves to talk about the movie. He loves to talk about his experience. He loves to talk about his other experiences at festivals and conventions and stuff like that. So it was really cool to meet him. I went from there to Nancy Loomis. I took a big poster that I have. It's kind of a rare poster with Nancy Loomis standing on the front of it on the phone. So I went and had her sign my poster, so I got to get that framed. She was really cool, sweet, and humble. She put speed kills on my autograph.
So you have now
really
met
cool.
all 3 of all 3 of Laurie's friends, the victims in Halloween: Nancy, Ellen, Nancy Loomis, and PJ Souls.
Yeah,
all 3.
So now I just got to meet Jamie Lee Curtis, and I'll have the.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be a tough one, but yeah.
That's gonna be a challenge.
Yeah.
I might have to put her in a movie in order to meet her.
I think so. She used to actually do a lot of horror conventions, but I think about 5 years ago she stopped. And I get it. She's pretty busy. She's doing a lot of stuff, so I get it. But come back, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
Also, at the same time, I feel like if Jamie Lee Curtis shows up at a horror convention, she's probably going to suck the air out of the room because she's probably going to be the biggest star anywhere that she goes. So I could see some people like, don't bring her in here. Yeah.
Well, the biggest surprise I think of the weekend was the Q&A with Emilio Rivera.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Latino guy. He's in a lot of movies with Danny Trejo. He's in Sons of Anarchy and the Mayans. He was in 3 from Hell. He was in X-Files, ER. He talked about being in Con Air with Nicolas Cage. He's got like 150 credits to his name. And this was one of the most emotional and inspiring Q&As I heard while I was there. This guy, he's got such a heart. And he's sitting there and talking to us, and it feels like his heart is just pouring out into the room. He loves the fans. He loves being in the movies that he's in. He loves like Sons of Anarchy. He loves motorcycles and stuff. And he told this really cool story that I really related to. He got in a bad motorcycle accident, and he had a really bad back injury where he had to have surgery. So he talked about when he got the part on 3 from Hell, that Rob Zombie didn't know that he had this injury, and he didn't want to tell him because he was afraid that it would mess up his chances to be in the movie. So he was doing this one scene. The first scene he had to film in 3 from Hell is when he kicked the door down, and he had to really kick a door down. So he was with a broken back, still fresh injury, and he had to kick the door down. And he was sitting there in such pain he couldn't hide it. So Rob Zombie came up to him and he said, "Hey, what's going on, man? You okay?" So he told him about the injury, and he said from that moment on, he said if he had to walk from that, he pointed at a pole at the other side of the room. He said, if I had to walk from here to that pole over there, he sent a car to take me. He said Rob Zombie was such an accommodating person, such a sweet person, and everybody who knew Rob Zombie, from Tony Todd to Malcolm McDowell, everyone who talked about him on this weekend had nothing but glowing things to say about Rob Zombie. They say he's so intelligent, he's such a sweet person, he's so accommodating. So everybody had great things to say about Rob Zombie. But
that's the message out there to you Rob Zombie haters out there. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. And Emilio Rivera, this is one of those guys where you sit and listen to him talk and you see how much heart he puts into his, because I guess he used to be a gangbanger and a drug addict and a drug dealer. So he kind of moved past all that. And I think he's like 30 years sober. So he really wears his heart on his sleeve, and he loves what he does. So just listening to him talk made me want to see every one of the 150 things he's been in.
He shares he shares my namesake, Michael, so he has to be cool.
There you go. So if you get a chance, check out Emilio Rivera's work. He does a lot of good work. And that brings us to my highlight, the biggest thing that happened to me on the whole weekend. I went and met Malcolm McDowell.
Alex himself.
Yep. I went in, and it was on Sunday, and I caught it at just the right time where the room was kind of empty, because it had been full pretty much the rest of the weekend. I walked in to Malcolm McDowell's room, and who's standing there but Sarah Allen Bauer. She's the actress that was in my movie Killer Hangover that was featured on Pickle's Horror Show. And her face lit up when she seen me. Said, "Hey, Michael Pickle, come here, come here." So I went over, and I had a paint pen. I had an orange paint pen ready that matched my Blu-ray. I had it all ready for Malcolm McDowell, and I was ready to have him sign it. And then I was like a deer caught in headlights, because she goes, "Michael Pickle, Michael, this is Malcolm McDowell. Malcolm, this is Michael. Michael is a very talented writer-director." I was, holy shit, my mind was blowing. I was shaking. I didn't know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I just told him that it was such an inspiring experience to watch the movie with him and here's Q&A. And I told him how entertaining his Q&A was, the way he talked to the people. And he told me, I just have no patience for stupidity. And he said, I don't want to be mean to him. So he said, I just tease him and goof off with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually so I just forgot to give him the paint pen. He used his own silver pen and everything. I didn't know what to say when I was actually introduced to the man himself, and she actually told him I was a writer-director. I was dumbfounded. So that was the biggest highlight of the weekend. I got to meet the great Malcolm McDowell.
What would you say when you meet the star of one of the greatest films ever made? What is that? Yeah.
And I actually went to two very entertaining Q&As. He did a Q&A at the Texas Theater after that showing of it, and then he did a whole panel at Texas Frightmare. So I'm going to be putting that one up on YouTube. So both panels are very entertaining. He found a way to tell different stories. Like if there was a story that the moderator asked him about that he already talked about at the Texas Theater, so I talked about that the other night. and then the funniest part of Malcolm McDowell is somebody was asking him about being in Castlevania. I guess he does a voiceover in Castlevania, and he does a voiceover in a couple different video games.
I don't remember. No, I just know he is in video games.
So someone asked him about those voiceovers, and he stood up there and he thought, and he was like, I don't think that was me. You must have me mistaken. And then somebody else spoke up. Oh no, you're in the credits. He said, oh, that's voiceover? I don't pay attention to voiceover. Fuck that. He said he doesn't know the name of any of the voiceovers that he's done. He just gets a call from his agent to go in and record something. He reads off the script and leaves. He doesn't even know the name of it. So.
Call of Duty Black Ops 3.
Yeah.
As a side note, he was also a villain on Superman the Animated Series and a character on Batman the Animated Series, but I doubt he remembers that based on what you're telling me.
Yeah. That man was something else. So that was my experience. And then some of the other stars that I got to see, but I didn't get to meet them, were Brad Greenquist from Pet Sematary, Tracy Lords, the great Dee Wallace from Cujo, Julian Hilliard, the little kid from Conjuring 3 and Haunting of Hill House. Dylan McDermott, my God, that man is a wax statue.
Was
I've
he
never
kicked out?
seen I've never seen a human being so perfectly chiseled. He looked like a little statue stand. He was shorter than me. I expected him to be taller than me.
Really, he
He is
is?
shorter than me. Yeah,
Is he like my height or
yeah.
taller?
He's about your height,
Really?
but
I'm actually kind of
super
shocked. I
chiseled.
thought he was tall.
Yeah, he's like a pretty man, dude.
Was he gimped out?
And
Did he have his shiny
no,
leather outfit and fetish gear? No? Okay.
no.
That's too
I
bad.
actually went up. I was thinking about getting his autograph because I love this TV movie he was in with Jennifer Rubin called The Fear Inside. So I went up and asked if they had any pictures of The Fear Inside. If they would have had those pictures, I would have got that autograph, but they didn't, so I didn't get it. One of the highlights of the thing was Miguel Nunez Jr. from Return of the Living Dead. That man, he's 57 years old. He still looks exactly the way he did in 1985.
Yeah.
He looks like he hasn't aged a day. He had the most energy of everybody. He seemed the happiest to be there. He was running, like getting in people's photos, like photobombing them. He was like our friend Mark Chavez. He's an artist, and he didn't get to go to Texas Frightmare Weekend. He goes to all these other conventions. And there's a fan who went up with one of Mark Chavez's pieces. It was Return of the Living Dead piece. He went up and wanted Miguel Nunez to sign it. Miguel Nunez loved it so much, he insisted that the guy call Mark on the spot and ask him to make one. He loved it so
Really?
much.
Did that happen?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's fucking awesome.
So,
For anybody who doesn't know, we actually interviewed Mark Chavez on this podcast too. He is a kick-ass horror artist. The things that he makes for people to sign I don't even like the 3D posters and the things that he invents for different horror films and tribute. You can buy them and take them to conventions, get them signed. So cool and so unique and so creative.
yeah, what he uses are shadow box frames is what they're called. Like these deep set frames that you usually display like medals and certificates and stuff like that in, but he uses them to put like 3D horror art in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see why Miguel Nunez Jr. loved it so much. Also Danny Trejo, but I didn't get a chance to meet him, and I also didn't get a chance to meet Corey Taylor, but I do have an autographed print from him. So that was my Texas Frightmare experience, and I definitely want to go back every year that I have the money to.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds like fun.
So cool.
So now we are going to be getting into the last part of our podcast, our horror Tubi Roulette segment. I know we always rehash this, but for the first time listeners, whatever, we go to the Tubi TV app, which is a free app where they have a ton of movies. Just have to watch some brief commercials with them. We go to the horror section. We scroll endlessly. Wherever we land, kind of like a Wheel of Fortune thing. Wherever we land, we have to come back and review that movie sometime within the next few weeks or month or so. So before we play a round of Tubi Roulette, I think it's time we get to reviewing our last picks. Should I go first?
Yeah, go ahead, since I told the Texas Frightmare thing.
All right, cool. So what I saw, what I landed on last time, and I almost switched it because I thought it was going to be too long, was the Rosemary's Baby miniseries starring Zoe Saldana. It's from 2014. It was on NBC. Okay. Here's the big problem with this movie. With this miniseries. It's only 2 episodes. A masterpiece version of the story already exists. Let's get that out of the way first. The original Rosemary's Baby, Polanski's Rosemary's Baby, is one of the greatest horror films of all time. Justifiably iconic. Such a great film. And there's no way that this was going to live up to it. And they do a lot of things that I found interesting, although I wasn't sure if it was necessary. They really go out of their way to distance themselves from the source material. And I have actually read the Ira Levin's novel, Rosemary's Baby. Roman Polanski's version is very faithful to that, novel. This kind of relocates things. It pushes things to Paris instead of New York. Roman and Minnie Castevet, the nosy neighbors, are more of a young couple instead of old people. A lot of characters, I can't even keep track, were switched in, were swapped for different versions of these characters. Different events happen, but they sort of follow the same trajectory. And while Paris looks really nice, it just has a very pedestrian, made for television quality throughout the entire running time. I think Zoe Saldana gives it her all and does the best what she has to work with. I kind of liked her in this, but it's still not a match for what Mia Farrow did in the original 1968 version. And to be honest, Mia Farrow had better material to work with, so I can't even really criticize her for that because she did the best she could with what she had. It stretches out the story too long and it bloats it, even though it's only 2 episodes, 3 hours, where it takes too many unnecessary detours that you didn't need to see. The neighbors don't have the same creepy effect that they did in the original film. The gore factor is really upped a lot in this version, especially compared to the one in 1968. So I guess the thing that it has up on it is shockingly pretty gory, especially for something made for NBC. That kind of took me off guard that they would go as far as they did with the graphic violence in here. It just feels, here's the thing, it just feels too familiar, and it's going to be a problem. I think if you've seen the original Rosemary's Baby or read the novel, this is going to be a severe letdown because there's already better versions of the story. And the thing that's worrisome is that younger people who watch this might be turned off to Rosemary's Baby and not go check out the classic movie or read the novel because this movie is so pedestrian and forgettable. We already know how Rosemary's Baby ends. I don't think there's a problem with me spoiling a movie from 1968. How at the end when Rosemary sees the baby and she's like, "Its eyes! What happens to its eyes?" And they all go, "He has his father eyes." They do this. Polanski did this really creative thing where you barely saw a really quick close-up of the eyes, kind of like blurred in and out. It's not very a clear look at the baby. This one, you see the baby full on and its eyes glow really, really bright blue, and it's not creepy. It doesn't, like, I don't know, it looks like a baby, a beautiful baby with very, very bright blue eyes. The rape scene really bothered me in this one because we know Rosemary is raped by Satan and is forced to carry Satan's child to term. And in the original Rosemary's Baby, her husband Guy tricks her into thinking that he slept with her while she was knocked out and while she fell asleep, which is really creepy because she wakes up with scratches on her and everything. In the original Rosemary's Baby, you could tell that Rosemary felt very violated by her husband, that what she did, she felt so disgusted and uncomfortable with it because she knew something was off. This version of Rosemary's Baby questioned it for like 20 seconds and then seemed to be horny for him all over again. So that it just has such a weird element that just seemed very uncomfortable to me, that she would just be, "Oh, okay, you raped me in the middle of the night. Let's have sex again." Like, getting mad at it for just, 15 seconds or something. That was just so dumb. I don't know, man. It's not necessary. There's already a great version of the story, and there's no reason to bloat it. And I think it tries too hard to go out of its way to separate itself from the original movie and the novel, only to end up at the same place with a much lesser impact. So, I didn't like it. No, I didn't like it. I mean, the gore was good. And Saldana does her best with with the role that she's given, but this is, to me, an unnecessary version of this story that we didn't need.
It sounds almost exactly like I figured it was going to be just hearing about it.
Like, you could tell, like a lot of the characters are missing and they're substituted with different characters, and you could tell who these characters are supposed to be stand-ins for. You know what I mean? Trying to rave.
Yeah.
But like, it just seems like it's trying too hard. Like, "Oh, you've seen this? We're gonna subvert your expectations," and it's not really subverting expectations. It's just a different version of that type of character or a replacement. I don't know. It doesn't work for me. And as a fan of the story, as a fan of the novel, as a fan of the original movie, you really want to experience Rosemary's Baby, please just go watch the 1968 version. Or if you're into literature, read the book. It's a damn good book. Love Rosemary's Baby, Ira Levin's novel, but this is not a good version of the story. Paris looks nice, though. I mean, beautiful. I can't say that the wasn't a good location, and definitely a cool apartment too. They have like some cool locations. I'll give it that, but nothing special.
And it's not like the original has aged badly. It's aged very well.
Yeah,
It still holds up.
yeah, it still holds up. But yeah, Rosemary's Baby 2014. Didn't care for it. Just go watch the original.
Well, apparently you still had better luck than I did.
Okay.
Mine is Infected: The Darkest Day. It's from 2021 and just came out June of this year.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much good to say about it, so I'll just start out with the good. It does feel like a zombie apocalypse on a very low budget. It's clearly an ultra low budget, probably like our type of budgets, and it does do a good job on a low budget, feeling like an apocalypse and feeling like these places are abandoned, feeling like that. But other than that, there's really no redeeming qualities. I mean, it's directed, co-written, and starring Dan Rickard, and it's too much of really nothing. You're dropped in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. This guy wakes up on the beach, and it's the type of zombies from 28 Days Later, but they seem a little more freshly human. So it's just these kind of off-kilter humans screaming and running towards you. So it's just constant through the whole movie. Just constant. There's very little dialogue. It's just kind of just people running at them. It goes from location to location, to character to character. Barely anyone says any dialogue. The dialogue that they say is very short, so you really don't know who any of these people are. I don't know which one was the director. I don't know which one was supposed to be the main character. I don't know what the story was. I honestly don't know anything that was going on. All I know, it was an hour and 20 minutes of That's it.
Well, it sounds worse than what I watched, but at least what you watched wasn't 3 hours.
Yeah.
I sat through 3 hours of a lame-ass miniseries of something that I already knew everywhere it was going. And its attempts to trick me into thinking that it was not going where you think it was going just didn't work either. Because it's very obvious where it's headed.
Outright bad like this is better than mediocre. I'll give you that.
So now that we've got that out of the way, yeah, usually at least one of us likes the movie. Like, I guess it didn't happen this time. So I'm ready to play Tubi Roulette. Okay?
Okay, let's do it.
All right, closing my eyes. You tell me when to stop.
Okay, now.
The Devil's Rejects? No, I've seen that too many times. I've even reviewed it. All right, so I'm going to go again.
Try again. And stop.
No Vacancy from 2012.
Ooh, that's a good one.
When 7 friends encounter car troubles on a road trip, they are welcomed by a group of seemingly helpful people who may have an ulterior motive. Okay, cool. Adding it to the watch list.
It's Luke Wilson, right?
Let me check. Let's see who's in this. No. Oh, I know which one you're talking about. That's Vacancy. This is
Vacancy. Okay.
Yeah, No Vacancy. Kristen Quintrall, Denise Lawton, Christopher Jones. I've actually never heard of this, but I'm adding it to the list now. Okay. No expectation.
I haven't heard of that one. Yeah, I haven't heard of that one. I just heard of Vacancy. No Vacancy. All right.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Scrolling. I'm going to stop.
Stop.
Okay. Oh, actually, Bait. I just actually reviewed that on the podcast a few weeks ago. So I'll try again.
Yeah.
All right. Tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Oh boy.
What did you land on?
I got Ouija Geist.
Oh, that sounds
Lord
terrible.
gracious.
Oh, you're in for something really bad. But maybe it'll be fun. Hopefully it's fun bad.
It's a single mother who just moved into a new apartment desperately seeks a priest's help after a Ouija board in her backyard starts to haunt her family.
Sounds pretty goofy.
It's got like some female entity on the front with a bunch of arms. Oh, this is going to be a joy. It's from 2020. Oh, boy.
All right. Well, we'll see pretty soon what we think of these movies. So, yeah, Tubi Roulette, No Vacancy, and Ouija Geist.
Those are such Tubi Roulette selections, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Ones you never quite heard of that sound kind of outrageous.
Yeah, that's Tubi. So we hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Please keep up with us everywhere. Follow us on Facebook. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/Pickles Horror Show. There you can keep up with all kinds of updates. As far as Instagram goes, we have an Instagram page. You can check it out right now. It's at Pickles Horror Show, but we are going to be building a new page pretty soon. So keep that in mind. And if you want to check us out on TikTok, if you want to see some of our greatest hits of what we've done, check it. It's at Horror Show Official. Lots of cool stuff on our TikTok. And if you're interested in what we're available to, our podcast is available through YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And if you want to check it out in a different format, just copy and paste the flow code that I always put in the description, and keep up with us.
Yeah, and I got a bunch of video clips from all the panels and stuff. Those will be going up on TikTok. I'll be putting some of the Malcolm McDowell Q&A up on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So check those out. And we just finished filming a brand new music video for the band The Promise of Plague. It's called Death Shrouds and Vomit Stains, and it stars Laura Von Ick and James himself. So watch out for that one coming in the next few months.
Perfect. Just keep up with us. Until next week, folks, happy horror.
Happy horror.